Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this narration of the web series, The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 140. Memory transcription subject, Slanek, Vendel Civilian. Date standardized human time, February 20th, 2137. The lack of ventilation inside the statue rendered it quite stuffy, which led to me donning on an environmental suit with an internal cooling. It wouldn't be ideal if my panting gave away that there was someone inside the statue. The icon of Nokonos was nearly double his actual height, and even had him holding a flamethrower. The Dirtian had a sense of humor, I give them that. Whatever Koji passed along to her people, the statue had been constructed hastily and to my plan was green-lit. The workmanship looked decent, in spite of the condensed time frame. The Kolshians were receptive to the homogeneity's offer to return to the fold, not knowing hidden venom was behind the talks. The Dirtian had a better idea than my motion sensor. They disguised a camera into the base, placing other knobs around it to conceal it. I tested the escape door before we departed. There was just enough room for me to kneel and spring out from the crouched position. I was also given a backup firearm to avoid any technical issues. The moment of truth came when Offa's gunships greeted us above world, scanning us with sensors. The masking technology obfuscated my signature enough, since the hidden compartment was painted with special materials that prevented light from passing through. I'd peeked at my camera screen when the ship's crew disembarked, and the Dirtian was shown inside the Federation Hall under careful watch. The Kolshians had quadrupled the amount of guards on site, with several looking down from the newly built watchtowers. "What is this?" the Kolshian soldier demanded as Ambassador Pogoshi pushed the statue down the cargo ramp. I'd needed to wedge myself between the walls to keep from sliding. "Shit, is that Nokonos? It's a striking likeness." Koji flapped her wings in agreement. "Yes, it's a gift as part of our peace offering. We would appreciate it if you could display it somewhere and allow us to show it to your leader as part of our humble apology." I'm sure there's room in the garden, though it wasn't authorized before." "Is the offering not good enough for the Commonwealth? Dirty artists didn't do well enough. I thought that we were here to reunite our peoples, not to be insulted and spat at." A routine protocol could certainly be waived if Nokonos deems fit. I mean, no offense. We'll place it in the garden, and you can go right in to see the High Chief." "Very well. I expect the Federation to respect our contributions in light of the impact that we have to the war. We'll follow your pal." I watched with bated breath as Koji was escorted inside the hall. The Kolshians weren't that trusting, giving it a lengthy scan and raised my hackles. One soldier rapped on Nokonos' chest above, finally seeming content when it didn't sound hollow. Thankfully, my compartment was tucked below the bulk of the statue. As cramped as it was, the Dirtian made a wise decision to minimize the space taken up by me. It lowered my risk of detection and limited the amount of off-putting cues that would be visible. The statue was moved onto a large dolly, with several Kolshian soldiers exerting themselves to push it across the clean sidewalks. Blood hummed in my veins as I fantasized about popping out and now shooting the grunts at point-blank range. With the hour of my plan in sight, the fear and doubts had evaporated. I was excited for the deliverance of sweet revenge, for me, for Marcel, and for every Vendel affected by the Federation. However, my wrath had to be saved for the one who deserved a summary execution. I had plenty of time to think, hours without stimuli, other than listening to guard chatter and surveying my surroundings. My life had gone downhill in a hurry. I ruined the only real friendship I ever had, and erased my fear at the cost of my soul. The humans and I had no idea what we were awakening from our shaking beginnings down this path. When Nokonos fell at my claws, if I was taken with him, 2 monsters would be killed. This was the only way to be free of the Federation's tampering once and for all. "Nokonos is the one at the helm of the war who plans to forcibly cure and use humanity. He gave the orders for Malu and every other battle and laughed about the centuries of torment for other races. He'll do anything for power. He is pure evil, lacking respect for nature or any other societies." This would be my final act to protect humanity and Vendel kind. I could still hear despondent words in Marcel's voice, demanding an account for what I'd done, but I had the conviction to pep myself up. The Dirtian saw the wisdom in my plan, so while Koji had called it deranged, there must be a merit to why I was doing it. The galaxy would be a better place without Nicona's drawing breath. I repeated the mantra to myself, and ruminated on how good it had felt to execute the Kolshian scientists at Baloo. Hours replaying at that moment worked me into a fervor. Where is Koji? I thought to myself. How long is that Dirtian going to dawdle inside? She was supposed to bring Niconas here. You'd think he'd want to see the stupid statue. Even fixating on my impulses wasn't enough to stave off boredom. Stuck in an uncomfortable suit in a cramped space, as I was half contemplating going on the prowl, seeking out the chief, distant chatter finally hit my ears. It had gone from daylight to eerie dusk, with a faint illumination falling on the curated choose flowers from the sinking sun. Koji and Niconas' voice floated behind me. The Dirtian ambassador to humanity was the perfect figure to renounce Earth and make amends. The duo were laughing like old buddies, seeming to mock Terrans. I doubted Koji had to fake a word she said. Was shocked to learn humans groom themselves, the Dirtian was saying. They trim those tiny patches of hair, paint their claws, and polish their canines. Predators dulling themselves up. It's hilarious. Niconas clasped his tentacles behind his back. Here, in a predator's mind, they truly think they're sapient. We know better, of course. There might be a tiny bit of credence to higher cognition in humans, but it is minimal. Flesh-eating beasts figured out germ theory, unlike the Yodel. Well, it is fortunate that those humans' monstrosities bathe, or they'd smell of blood and carcasses. Just to not smell more rancorous than they already do with that sweat. They're dripping in it. I've seen a pool under their armpits, and it's feckin' gross. We never wanted to be friends with them. Remind me why I shouldn't aim for Koji after Niconas. The way she talks about Terrans is disgusting. She's lucky that we have the same enemy. The Dirtian was positioned out of reach of Niconas, with the guards keeping the duo apart. I grimaced when the Kolshian leader stopped a hearty distance from the statue, admiring it from afar. He inspected it for several seconds before returning his focus to the avian. Curses flitted through my mind. I thought that he'd view it from every angle and be drawn in by his own towering image. It represented the power he wished to lord over others, as well as the fawning attention he craved. What do you think? Koji prodded. Niconas started to turn away from it. It is satisfactory, but I'm not sure that it'll help our image to keep this around. Are you joking? It is an expression of adoration from an independent party who regrets their time outside the Federation. It's not like you built it. Please, humor me and appreciate the craftsmanship. Come close. Look at the knobs in the base here. They're carved with a different flora from Alpha. The Dirtian trotted forward without waiting for Niconas' response, and I noticed the Kolshian leader curled his lips a bit with irritation. He trailed after the avian, offering a cursory glance at a knob to appease her. The grey avian was stationed right in front of the camera and the escape hatch. Though she was struggling to coax Niconas into position, I might have to go for suboptimal ambush. Feel the quality of the materials and the level of detail. I want you to appreciate it, Chief. Give me some interest. We don't give gifts lightly. Worried the press are going to catch you? Koji squawked. Niconas trudged up with reluctance, and the Dirtian moved out of the way so that he could take her place. The indigo skin containing his violet blood and the bulbous, sickly orange eyes harboring evil intent were right before me. This was the time to strike. Given that Koji had been instrumental in luring the Kolshian to the spot, my anger towards her eased a bit. I ensured my paws were ready on the gun and wrapped my tail around the statue's release lever. With a single, unhesitating tug, the assassination attempt was set in motion. After dreaming about this moment for hours, all that rushed through my mind now was Skolga and Earth, my two homes. I thought about Jency and her tears at my brother's funeral. Thanks to what I was about to do, she'd be mourning her other son's death in no time. If Marcel truly still cared for me, he would be grief-stricken too. This choice of mine was going to hurt the people I loved. Yet I still had the resolve to move forward. The door slid open, and I lunged towards the Kolshian that was a mere feet away. What the? Niconas gasped out a few words, and alarm flashed in his eyes. Before his guards could even draw their weapons, I gotten off several trigger pulls into the center mass. Violet blood gushed from the wounds. but I made sure I kept pulling to ensure the job was done. The Crawlshian leader crumpled to the ground, while Koji had taken to the skies in hasty escape. I landed on all fours, shoving the barrel into his temple. The guards had drawn their weapons, and I could hear shots being fired towards me. Pain seared through my stomach, nearly blinding out all sensory input, but I managed to depress the trigger again. Brain matter spluttered over my wrists as another bullet struck me in the leg. My crooked limb gave way underneath me, and as I fell, more shots whizzed by where my head had been. Lycotus was splayed behind me, lying in a pool of his own blood. His bulging eyes were cold and lifeless. I could tell from the vacant gaze that he was gone. I'd done what I set out to do. The wicked tyrant, the face of the empire that terrorized every world they came across, was dead. I'm okay with being executed now. My sacrifice will be worth it and bring humanity one step closer to demolishing the Federation. Still clutching my gun, I grasped in pain and on the ground. Orange blood was dripping onto the grass, matting my stomach fur with sickly fluids. I managed to raise the weapon and fire a shot at a guard. It clipped him in the shoulder, though the gash unfortunately didn't cripple him. More soldiers were rushing to the scene, focused on me for all directions. I tried to fire again, but my magazine came up empty. With my bullets spent on Lycotus, my agency was diminishing, as rapid blood loss threatened to send my system into shock. "Ceasefire! That's Slinek! Take him alive!" a commander shouted. Colchians rushed to stand over me and kept their guns pointed at me. Medics checked on Lycotus first, finding him lacking a pulse. At an officer's order, they turned their focus to me. With my mission complete, I was ready to put an end to the thoughts that plagued me. I felt surprisingly calm about bleeding out in the hall's glamorous garden. Tentacles got work packing my wounds and prepping me for transit. I clawed feebly towards their eyes, though my paw was swatted back with ease. "Feck, you!" I spluttered. My life flashed before my eyes as I laid there staring at the sky. There was a lot of blood. I could tell that without looking. I'd never planned on making it out alive, and clearly, Koji hadn't concerned herself with my escape either. I stopped fighting and relaxed into the ancient fall sinking its grip into me. A cold, involuntary wave tugged me down to unconsciousness as I fell further away from all the senses and thought. Harsh light flitted into my eyes as I slowly came to in a laboratory. It wasn't clear how long I'd been out, but I still felt disoriented. My wounds had been mended, and an IV was sticking into my arm. It could have been used for a blood transfusion. A sick feeling clasped my abdomen, realizing that I was in Colchian custody. Researchers were conferring with each other, clearly talking about me. Something in the air they exuded reminded me of that evil scientist Navarus. The visuals in my periphery finally registered as machinery I'd seen in the humans' anti-predator disease campaigns. This seemed like a facility, the reason Onzo had cautioned me against touting my diseased mind. I tried to prompt my weak limbs to rise, but restraints strapped me to the table. The jangling sound alerted the Colchians to my wakefulness, and a doctor skipped over with delight. I gulped nervously, though my throat was lacking in saliva. "Yeah, you're awake. Now we can do our neurological scan and determine the exact areas that trigger venereal aggression." The doctor pressed a few buttons, and the cot I was laying in rolled down a conveyor into a machine. "Researcher's log. We are commencing our initial survey of the assassin. I anticipate few difficulties breaking this venereal. He only spent a few months with the predators. Once re-education is complete, this docile Slinek will be an excellent example of our allies of why gentling and curing are necessary practices." My ears clammed flat with pure terror, listening to the hum of the machine. The Colchians were scanning me to identify which parts of my brain they wanted to change, and then were likely to broadcast the before and after to demonstrate what an excellent job they'd done. I wasn't sure if the researcher had meant for me to overhear. Perhaps he thought it wouldn't make a difference whether I knew his intent. What if they convinced me to detest humans and go back to being meek prey? I didn't want that. Regardless of what they did to me, I'd hold out for the memory of Marcel. I struggled against the restraints again, despite knowing it was useless. 3 monsters had me at their mercy, and given my role in Lyconus's gruesome death, I imagined my treatment would be less than kind. Every ounce of my brain wished that I'd bled out in the garden, and that the tale ended just as Frankenstein's monster had perished. There wasn't supposed to be anything after the assassination was complete. I had to find some way to get out of here. The rest of my life suddenly seemed like an endless stretch of torment. I fell into a numb state of terror, realizing the unavoidable future in store for me. The personal sacrifices necessary to bring about Niconis' demise were higher than I'd ever expected. The Colchians chuckled amongst themselves as they scanned the terrorized Vendal's brain for places to poke and prod. Hatred simmered in my veins, and I yearned to kill every last one of them. Yet all the same, despite the burning rage that festered inside me, my deepest, all-consuming thought was that I missed my human. Memory stream terminates here. No further transcription data exists for the subject's neural signature. End of chapter. There is a new legend on the horizon. Blueberry Cat has taken the T6 Patreon spot. Thank you very much, and I'm sure that I speak for everyone when I say that. I would just like to thank our T5 members, Lord Azrakel, Ambrose Cattell, Quantum Wednesday, Dragzoon W.R.E, Blueberry Cat, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, and Leslie 517. Thank you very much.